Hi, I want to tell some Bigfoot stories. Um, I live out here in Northern California, and I was out on my property. I have a big ranch, and out in the middle of nowhere, and it had just rained. There was a road that was wet, but there was giant footprints on the road, and the footprints, I have a 12 and a half wide, and I was wearing my big Vibram sole boots. Well, I put my boot inside of the footprint, and there was an inch on each side. It was that wide, and it was about 3 inches longer than my boot. So the foot was giant. I stepped in the mud where the footprint was at, and my foot only sunk, and this is stomping, and I weigh about 220 pounds at the time, stomping in the mud, and my foot only went down about an inch. Well, these footprints were like 3 inches deep. So whatever was leaving the print must have been 500 or 600 pounds plus. I was like, wow, these are big footprints, and I wish I would have brought my camera and taken pictures. I didn't have my camera because it was wet at the time, and I was like, I didn't want to wreck my phone. But so I cruise around the property more, and I found a bunch of trees that were snapped off, that were about this big around, and they were snapped off high up, just snapped off, and there was a bunch of them snapped off. And I've been watching a bunch of Bigfoot videos, and they say that's how they mark their territory. So another day I'm cruising out with my daughter and our four-wheeler. We have a Honda Talon side by side, and we're out in that area, and I smell a stink that is so strong, and it smelled like we were at the garbage dump. Cross between that and a skunk, but it wasn't a skunk. I've grown up in this area forever. This was a strong smell. It smelled like a wet animal, wet dog. And yeah, we definitely have Bigfoots around here. But I also want to tell another story about a contractor that I had working for me this summer. And he was telling me a story as he was coming down from Oregon. He was coming down Highway 101, right where you come from Oregon into California. And there's a runaway truck ramp. Everyone knows it if you're coming down that spot on the freeway. And he told me it was late night, and he was really making time. He said, I was doing 100 miles an hour plus. And he said, I had passed two cars, flew by them, and I'm going down the hill by that truck ramp. And he said there was a 9-foot red Bigfoot. And he said it was so big that the shoulders were like huge and wide. and he said it stepped across the road in front of him, and he said in one step it jumped all the way over the runaway truck ramp and was gone. But this guy's a avid hunter and an outdoorsman, and he told me, I never believed in Bigfoot until I saw this Bigfoot running across the road last year. He said, I've grown up here my whole life, been hunting, fishing, trapping, and I never believed in Bigfoot. But he said, after that, he said, oh, they're real. And yeah, he told me that story, and I just thought I would add that to my stories. Real nice guy, contractor, and real together. Not the kind of guy that would make it up. This guy was really woodsy. Definitely country boy, survival. And yeah, he said he had that experience this last year. But I also want to tell a story about my sister's boyfriend, who was also a hunting guide. And he told me about one in the same area. These are all right up at the Oregon-California border, right after Crescent City. And he said that he was out hunting, elk hunting, and he said he saw one of these Bigfoot that was about 8 feet tall. He said he ran by him and like a couple steps cleared so much ground. And then he said there was a giant bank, and he said he took a couple steps and he jumped all the way up over a giant bank, which was something a human couldn't even climb up. He's like, this thing was moving and it was fast, and it went right up that cliff like nothing and jumped over it in like 2 steps. This guy is a professional guide, and he guides all around the country for all kinds of animals. He's constantly hunting. I mean, from Alaska, guiding in Alaska, guiding in Africa, guiding in all these places. So this guy really knows animals, and he said, yeah, they're real, and he wanted to let me know that they're real. Well, there's been so many sightings, and I have a bunch of other friends that were down here at this place called Usaw Beach, and a bunch of them saw a Bigfoot down there that was in the middle of the night. They were watching it on a full moon night. It was a giant red Bigfoot, and there was a group of guys, but these were and this was some years back, but that story stuck with me because I knew a bunch of these guys. And they said they were out on a full moon night watching a giant red Bigfoot in the moonlight down at low tide and popping abalones off the rock. He said, they said you could hear him popping them off. If you've ever heard an abalone pop off the rocks, it's like, anyways, he was popping abalones off the rocks as all these guys were up on the mountainside watching him on a full moon night. And 2 of the guys were friends of mine, and then they were with another group of guys, and they had all witnessed it, and they were like, yeah, Bigfoots are real. There are so many sightings around here. If you go up 101 by the big Paul Bunyan and the big bull right on the side of the freeway, everyone knows where that spot is. It's a famous tourist spot. There's a map in there, and I went in there last year as I was cruising by going up to Crescent City, but there's a map on the wall in there, and it says all the Bigfoot sightings, and right in that area there are like hundreds of sightings. They have new sightings all the time, and it is definitely something that is going on and real. People talk about it, and I actually have another friend that lived right up in that same area, and he was doing the same thing. He was just, I also have another friend that one of my sister's ex-boyfriends, and he lived right up in that area, Orleans, and he told me he was elk hunting, and he said he saw a Bigfoot run by, and when he was out in the woods, and he said this thing was 8 feet tall, and he said it ran by him in a couple steps, the same kind of story, and ran up a cliff and was gone in like 2 steps. And this is another guy that's very woodsy, and yeah, he is another guy. There's multiple people up here that have these sightings. I know by the footprints that I saw, whatever made those footprints and was snapping off these trees was huge, because these trees were snapped off at like, man, 6 foot high. The trees were snapped off, and they were this big around, and there was a bunch of them. They were kind of snapped off going over the road, so I was having to clean them up with my chainsaw. But you know, I'd smelt that smell up there, that stink, multiple times, so I know they're up there. The brush is real thick, and the mountains go all the way from here to Fort Bragg, which is about 50 or 60 miles of straight forest in between here and there. So it is really wild out there. Yeah, definite Bigfoot country. I just want to tell that story and let people know, yeah, the Bigfoots are real. I haven't seen one personally, but the footprints were huge. Unless there was a giant guy out there that weighed about 500 or 600 pounds, those footprints were big footprints. If I see him again in the future, I'm going to take some pictures. I just wanted to share that story. We live up here in Northern California, and it is definite Bigfoot country. Okay, I just wanted to share that story with you. Please give me a like. Thank you. And please follow me. God bless you.